This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Do you want better mental health? Then BetterHelp is for you. It is affordable, accessible, and most importantly, personalized online therapy. There is a special offer to the Lucy Pod listeners. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/thelucypod. That's better, HELP.com/thelucypod. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. Please remember that the Lucy Pod is not a replacement for professional medical advice. If you have questions or concerns about your own amazing brain, please speak to a medical professional. I wish to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I speak to you all today, the peoples of the Kulin Nation. Always was, always will be Aboriginal land. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Lucy Pod. I hope that you are all well and are staying safe. I hope that you all enjoyed my latest episode on TikTok and ADHD, all about how TikTok has complicated how we discuss, view, and relate to ADHD. Now, before we get into today's topic, I just want to preface it with saying that I have not been very well lately, but I am better now, but I still have some remaining phlegm and ickiness. So if my voice does not sound like its usual musical self, it is because of that, but I think we will be okay. So with that out of the way, let's talk about today's topic. So I have some concerning ADHD news. Today, which is the 24th of May, the ABC released an article titled ADHD Clinics Capitalise on Diagnosis Explosion, with some charging up to $3,000 and paying doctors up to $900,000 a year. I have linked the article in the description for a full read, but basically, according to the article, quote, "A new kind of ADHD clinic is cashing in on surging demand for diagnoses and promising salaries of more than $900,000 to recruit psychiatrists." And an individual called this clinic to see if they could get an appointment for an ADHD diagnosis, and they were told that there was a 3 to 6 month waiting list. However, if they could pay $3,000 upfront, they could be pushed to the front of the queue. This is horrific. I encourage all of you to read the article in its entirety because it does go into horrifying detail about this exploitative practice and tells the story of a social worker from Melbourne, Anita Wall, who had an experience with the clinic where they basically tried to scam her into paying a ridiculous fee just to get her ADHD medication. Not even a diagnosis, just regular access to her medication. The article said it best. This clinic and similar ones are cashing in on people's condition and vulnerabilities. People with ADHD are already vulnerable and disadvantaged. We do not need clinics that are supposed to be there to help us, exploiting us and scamming us. And even though this may not affect you or me, because, in my case, I already have secured a psychiatrist and can access prescriptions for my medication, that does not mean that we can just be okay with this because it's unacceptable. It is unacceptable that an increasingly so-called aware, neurodivergent aware society that this is still happening. It is unacceptable that this is happening in a society that we deem as accepting. The day that ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, because it is a disorder, gets taken seriously and systems are put in place so that this does not happen and that people can receive affordable diagnoses and treatments, will be the day. We've made this happen for so many other conditions. We have made accommodations, allowances, progress, which is great. But I do not know why ADHD is being left out. I don't know why we continue to make it harder for ADHDers to live. We can't say that we're an ADHD aware society and then do this sort of crap. ADHD is real. It affects people in different yet very real ways. And I guarantee you that you have at least one diagnosed or undiagnosed coworker, student, classmate, friend, or customer in your life, and they deserve access. Last year, during ADHD Awareness Month, there was the whole ADHD guidelines law or bill or discussion that was passed. Where is that now? Where is it when we need it? I know things are easier said than done and that we can't just make things for free, but I really think we need to sit down and analyze the current situation and consider the alternatives, which could be income bracket-based prices for diagnosis and medication. Why not make diagnosis accessible through schools? Why not make diagnosis cheaper or free for children under a certain age? Why not make medication less expensive for families who are earning under a certain income? These are all alternatives. And if we can do that for other conditions, we can certainly do it for ADHD. Just because ADHD does not always present itself as severe, debilitating, life-threatening like other conditions do, does not mean that people who are ADHD, who are unable to access diagnosis and care, are not suffering. Most people with ADHD suffer from other conditions such as OCD, anxiety, and depression, and this disgusting situation and society exacerbates it. When you keep alienating and taking advantage of an already vulnerable group in society, they get worse and they slip through the cracks. And that is the cold, harsh reality. Just like for people dealing with other conditions, this is the same for ADHD. And I put it under the bracket of those conditions because it comes with comorbidities. It comes with other issues. And I'm not even putting it as in it's worse than other conditions. It should be treated as the same in the sense that everyone should have access. Everyone who is dealing with a mental illness, a disability, a learning difficulty, a neurodivergent condition, a neurobiological behavioral disorder should receive the same amount of care. There should not be this division. And it really aggravates me when I see people, whether it be in my life or in comments on, the article, who say, oh my God, I didn't realize that like ADHD was like a thing that needed, care. And I didn't realize that it was that bad. I didn't know that people were getting scammed and slipping through the cracks. And oh my God, like I didn't know that you guys actually needed help. And it's like, what do people think ADHD is? I really think people do not know what ADHD is, or they have a very strange perception of it. I think there's a fraction of people or a group of people who just deny ADHD being a thing. Like they think that it's a behavioral issue that's just down to bad parenting and that, you're just misbehaving. Then there's those people who think that it's a thing, but like you can control it, so just get over it. And then there's other people who just think that it's about being a bit inattentive and having like, a really big and outgoing personality. And obviously ADHD is different for everyone, but I'm going to say that most people with ADHD would not say, oh, it's something that I can help and I love having it all the time and it poses me no problems. Maybe there are people like that, but even me, who's like a big ADHD advocate, who's into the whole like ADHD is your superpower, I can say that there are times when I do not want to have it and it is crap, okay? So I don't know why people like don't take it seriously. Like, do people with ADHD need to, I don't know, die, revolt in the streets, have meltdowns in the street? Like, I don't know how else to make people realize that ADHD is legitimate and that for many people it wreaks havoc. I'm not trying to say that it's worse than this and worse than that, but it's a spectrum and it can be very bad. And even in people who are coping with it well, like me, I have my off days. I have, like I always say, I have days where it wreaks havoc in my life. I have weeks where it wreaks havoc in my life. Even when I take my medication, it wreaks havoc. So I don't know why people think that it's just like a thing of, oh, but you're just extra chatty. Oh, but you got your meds, so you're fine. Oh, but it means you're creative. Oh, but it means you do this. Like, no, it doesn't mean any of that. It means a lot of things for different people. And regardless of where you are on your ADHD journey or what sort of support you need, you should be able to feel like you can get help. You shouldn't have to worry about getting, on a waiting list of 6 months to just get medication so that you can go about your life. It's obscene. It's really obscene. It's just not on. And it's not even like a funny, like, oh, it's not on. Like, it's unacceptable. I think our government owes us better than this. We, are in a lucky position to be in a country that, obviously the world's on fire, but we're doing pretty well. We have the resources. We're not America where we don't have, free and affordable healthcare, where we let veterans and people with cancer die. We don't have that, and if we do, we have it to a much lesser extent than the States. So and other countries. So it's actually like shameful that this is happening. We cannot claim to be an inclusive society where you include and support people of various spectrums and disability spectrums, and then have people being scammed because of their ADHD and make it impossible to get a diagnosis and for them to get appointments. Like, it's maddening. And tell me how it makes sense. Make it make sense. I think the government needs to make it easier. Here's the thing. I'm not even putting blame necessarily all on these clinics and all of that. I'm holding a bit of the government responsible. I think the government needs to make it easier for clinics to accommodate the demand of appointments, because obviously in certain clinics and in certain predicaments, they can't take on, all these people wanting diagnoses. That's why the waiting list is so long. So I think that we need to make it easier for them. Absolutely. How do we do that? I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but surely in the great minds that are running, the world, or, Australia, they can put their heads together and figure something out. We've done this before. Some great initiatives have happened because of this. We have had schemes like Medicare, like the NDIS, which are amazing steps in progress. If we can do that, I feel like we can do something for ADHD. If we got those guidelines, there were those guidelines made, surely we can make it easier. And there's always talk of, we're reducing the price of medications, That's great. That's great you want to reduce the prices of medication, but what about the people who can't even get prescriptions for the medication? Like, that's great. It's a fantastic initiative. ADHD medication should not be as expensive as it is. But what about people who can't even get an appointment and a script to access that medication? What do we do about them? What do we do? And I'm sure there will be some people listening to this or reading the article thinking, nah, this is just all about people getting overdiagnosed. It's this trend of people wanting to be diagnosed. And actually in the article, it touches on this, that maybe, social media might be responsible, and TikTok. And here's the thing. TikTok has definitely negatively contributed to the discussions and perceptions of ADHD. And I've already discussed this in my previous episode. However, I think social media, whether it be TikTok or Facebook, has made ADHD more visible and has made people look at themselves and go, I don't feel as alone as I used to. Maybe what I'm experiencing is ADHD, and it gives people an initiative, and it actually confirms some of people's suspicions and leads them to get diagnosed. And I do think in a way that is a good thing. It's a double-edged sword, because then you've got people thinking that, everything they do, it's like, it must be ADHD. But I do think for the cases that it makes people go, hang on, I'm not dumb. I'm not crazy. I'm not just lazy. This might be ADHD. I think that's a good thing. So I don't think it's a result of people wanting to be trendy. I just really don't. Sure, could we find a case or several cases of people pretending to be ADHD? Of course, we can find people pretending to be this, pretending to be that. Absolutely, of course. But to say that all these people who are struggling to get appointments, who are writing to the ABC, who are getting scammed, are making it up is just not true. That's, if you believe that, you have not read the article, you've not understood, and not even to be patronizing, but you lack critical thinking skills to just write it off as, nah, it's a social media trend. You've missed the point. You've missed the whole point. The whole point is that we have made it impossible for people with ADHD to just get on with their lives. It's actually really sad to say, but that's what it is. We've just made it really difficult for people with ADHD to just get on with it. And I'm not trying to say that like by having a psychiatrist and having medication that everything is solved, but for many people, ADHD medication is essential to their functioning. And I'm not saying that it's necessarily a matter of life and death. Obviously, we're not going to compare it to medications like insulin or like, EpiPens, of course. Like, I'm not going to get into like comparisons, but medication for many people is a stepping stone or is part of their treatment. It is what they need so that their ADHD is manageable. It's not curable. It's not better necessarily. It just makes their life easier. And we want that, if we're all part of a society, we live in a society and we care, about one another. And I'm not saying that like you have to love everyone. But if, in a society when, free healthcare is a thing and we want everyone to kind of be happy, we don't want much discord, we don't want people being left behind, we need to start thinking about people with ADHD. We're part of it as well. And I'm not trying to say that we're this horrible minority who's been oppressed and abused, but I'm sick of having to justify myself when I talk about ADHD. And I'm sometimes made to feel as though if I talk about ADHD in this way, I'm somehow saying something else when I'm just stating the facts that ADHD is important. So I'm actually going to stop doing that from now on, because people who know me, people who consume my content, know that this is important to me and it's got nothing to do with anything else. So we need to start considering people with ADHD or ADHD as part of our society. They are part of it. They are your teachers, your friends, your parents, your partners, your lovers, your favorite artists, painters, singers. We are here and we deserve to access care. Because I'm telling you, if people couldn't get their birth control in an accessible way, there would be problems. And I agree with that. So if people can't get their ADHD meds, there should be a problem with that. And if no one else is going to make a ruckus and make an issue of it, I certainly will. And I'm actually starting to think that I might write to some people in Parliament. I'll have a think about that. And if that is a thing and I can actually do something actionable like that, I will definitely make an announcement or like a post on how you can do this too and how you can contribute. So I just wanted to share this news with you, share my thoughts while it is still fresh, because I'm sure by next week, people will have forgotten. We're all a bit outraged. We will have forgotten, but I won't. Sorry, I'm trying to make light of it. It sounds very Game of Thrones. It's like, maybe you've forgotten, but I have not. Like, I feel like Jon Snow or Arya Stark would say something like that. So yeah, the news cycle is going to pick up with something else. Someone will have done this, someone will have done that, Vanderpump Rules, da-da-da-da-da. But this is still an issue that I think about constantly, because now more and more in my life, I am talking to ADHDers. I have a lot of friends who are being recently diagnosed, and they're sharing how hard it was for them to not only get the diagnosis, but then to continue like seeing their psychiatrist to get the medication. And it kills me. It kills me. And these isn't even people who are in a bad financial predicament. These are average people who can't even access it. So that's an issue. If it was just affecting, well, no, it's still bad. But if it was just affecting like a small subset of people who just couldn't afford it, that could be, how do I put it? That's something that we can zero in on. And I'm not saying it's less serious, but it's scarier when people in an average situation can't even do it. Like, that's how bad it is. This isn't something that is removed and it's only affecting people far, far away who, are super poor. Like, we don't have to worry. This is affecting everybody, including people who are poor, including the most vulnerable that we should care about. But I just, as an example to show you how serious it is, average people are not coping with this. That's how bad the situation is. It's like COVID. It's not just old people dying, it's young people too. It's just bad all round. And I'm not comparing COVID to this or that to COVID. I'm just saying things are not good. So I hate for this episode to be a downer, but it's not a downer. It's just the cold, harsh reality. And in the words of, is it Jack Nicholson in that movie? Is it? You can't handle the truth. You can't handle the truth. That's what it is. This is the truth. This is the cold, hard, horrible reality that people with ADHD have been facing forever. And it needs to change. And I'm appalled. Now for something a bit lighter. Well, not lighter, but something that gives you a bit of help and hope. So if you are struggling with finding appointments and finding support, I will be putting some resources in the description. I am not going to guarantee that this will lead to a diagnosis or lead to anything. I can't guarantee because I'm not a doctor. I'm not anything like that. But these are resources with some support. There's going to be the ADHD Foundation in there, some counselling resources if this is getting to you a bit. But just know that we're going to be right. Like, it's a crap situation, but fear not. Things will change. They have changed. Things have improved. Things will get objectively better. And when this thing has been fixed, another horrible ADHD issue will come up and we'll have to sort it again. But that's why I do the degree that I do and talk about the things that I do, because that is the way life is. So I encourage you all to read the article, read it in its entirety, whether you want to read it before listening to this episode or after. I don't know if you made it this far. I think it's a good article to read. It'll definitely be in the description. Make use of the resources I've put below, and you can look forward to some more episodes of the Lucy Pod. Do not worry, ADHD Decoded has not gone anywhere. It is still here. So yeah, thank you for listening. Take care, be good, stay safe. Do not forget to follow me on Instagram and Facebook at the Lucy Pod, and do not forget to stream me on your favorite platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music. Don't forget to follow me, stream me, and give me 5 stars on there. And again, behave yourself, be good, stay safe, and bye. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. Don't forget the special offer to the Lucy Pod listeners. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/thelucypod. That's better, HELP.com, the Lucy Pod.